Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
I thank you very much for tuning in today. I have a gentleman here that is a self-proclaimed gym nerd, if you will, that turned his fitness passion to a venture-backed tech startup. And he's proud to serve and help, over 10,000 people, and really would like to help over 1 billion. I mean, that sounds pretty lofty, right? But I'm pretty sure that he will get it, if you will. So, I encourage you to listen to some of his other podcasts and shows and visit his website. And of course, all that will be shared a little later on. But he is the co-founder and CEO at Copilot, a fitness tech startup that makes you 10 times more likely to achieve your fitness goals and has a deep understanding of the obstacles people face while building fitness into their lives. I know I'm one of those people that's kind of hot and cold, based on situations and life and, other health challenges, just the regular old people type stuff, right? But he's been building companies since he's in high school and motivated to build products that make people's lives easier and healthier. Since he founded Copilot in 2019 during his junior year at Carnegie Mellon University, he's raised over $17 million in venture funding and grown Copilot to serve tens of thousands of clients with over 100 plus full-time employees. Thank you very much for coming on and listening today. I bring none other to you than Matt Spettel. Matt, thank you very much for coming on today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maurice. Amazing intro. I love the gym nerd shout out. That is very, very true, even to this day. So
really? Super
excited to be here and super excited to dig into to Copilot and what we've done.
All right, cool. So one of the things that we talked about in the green room, about venture capitalism. And sometimes some people are a little apprehensive about it and not sure how to move forward with it. So what is venture capitalism first, and then how do you raise it, or we encourage you to jump into that space?
Yeah, great question. So, first, just fundamentally, venture capital is a type of investment where professionals will raise money from other people. So that's, one misconception is that it's just people investing their own money, but really it's, individuals or groups of people will go and raise money from pension funds or, these giant pools of money that are kind of, sitting around, right? Universities, things like this. And then they'll deploy that money into very, very risky, generally high-tech investments. Doesn't have to be technology, but typically there's some element of technology or innovation in these businesses. And the whole model of this investment is very different than if you were to just put money into the stock market. Really, what they're hoping for is that, maybe 1 in 10 or maybe even 1 in 20 of these companies that they invest in are going to absolutely blow up, if you will, in a good way, or they're going to become the next Facebook, right?
Right.
And that 1 in 10 company or that 1 in 20 company is going to do so well that it's going to pay for the unfortunate outcome of the other 9 or 19 companies, right, that don't make it to that level, right? So it's a very interesting asset class where the expectation is that most of your investments will fail. And as a founder, to answer the other part of your question, why would a founder take on venture capital? In our case, the main reason was building technology, hiring engineers, developing new things, in some cases building hardware, right? And also bringing on all of the staff that we needed to deliver our product, in this case, a lot of really experienced personal trainers, is pretty expensive. And when you're starting from ground zero with literally no capital from any source. We were 19 years old at the time, still in college classes, right? So it's not like we had a piggy bank we could pull from to fund this venture, right? So we had to go to these external sources and say, hey, like, are you willing to bet that we would be, one one of those 20 companies, right, that you think can make it big. And you talk to a lot of people, you get a lot of rejections, but eventually we were fortunate enough to find a few people who believed in us, and we grew it from there.
So you stated you were 19 years old.
Yep.
So how did you build up the courage? Because some people can't even do it at 50. So how did you do it at 19, to come up with that idea of, hey, I'm going to reach out to a company like that to invest in me?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, the confidence, and I always say that confidence, in my opinion, gets you much farther than any real skill, if you will, right? Especially at Carnegie Mellon, I was surrounded by people who were far smarter than me, far more talented, far more skilled in almost every area than me. But I was always pretty high to the top when it came to just confidence in that if I set my mind to something, I could do it. And I credit that mostly to my upbringing, and both of my parents, especially my dad, were really good about reinforcing this idea of, oh, you have this interest, let's go pursue it. Like, oh, you failed, that's okay, pick yourself back up, you can do it. And like essentially building the muscle memory for, or really the confidence for, if I try to do something, I will fail many, many times, but eventually I'll probably get there, hopefully, right?
Right.
So, by the time I was in high school, I had this bug in my head of, I really want to build my own thing. I want to build my own product. I want to, own something that I can, look around someday and see just in the hands of everyday people. And I sort of had this vision in my head. And, that was the thing that I started driving towards that, even to this day, I still believe is inevitable, right? You said the billion impacting a billion lives, right? It's holy crap. Like only a few people in the world could say that they've impacted a billion lives, right? But I see that as this inevitability. And I wake up every day sort of with that mindset of, yes, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of failures, but I will make it there eventually. And I had that mindset at 19, and I still have that today. And that's what gave me the courage to say, no, I'm not going to go try to get that Google job like my classmates. I'm going to, jump out there and try to raise this money. And it was not glamorous, to be clear. It was very, very not glamorous. Me and my co-founder were living together, and we were working out of our living room, and we were making, I think, around $10K a year at most, just to pay the bare minimum everything, right? And scraping by for several years before we got to the point where, it looks all amazing of, oh, you raise venture capital and you have all this revenue and things, right? But did not happen overnight.
So you talked about early on, innovation, being in, and being creative. I think that's the other part that you're referencing too. So in these spaces of, going to Carnegie Mellon, like you said, you're in school, and sometimes school does not allow you to be creative or to express yourself, right? And so how did you stay focused on that part of your life where, you stated, hey, I wanted to do this since high school. How did you stay focused? Because sometimes people hear all the outside noise. No, you need a job, you need a job, you need a job. So how did you stay in that space?
Yeah, that is a very good question, because especially at universities like Carnegie Mellon, there is this immense expectation and pressure that you'll kind of follow the beaten path. You'll get really good at software interviews, and then you'll probably go and get a job at one of these really big tech companies, right? And the perception and the reality is that almost everyone is working towards that path, right? And so finding opportunities where I could completely diverge from that path and never not study for interviews or not pursue these prestigious internships, but instead just say, yeah, I'm just going to lock myself in a room and just work on this idea this summer. And I know that that's probably not that great for my career or whatever, right? But it ended up being the foundation that let me jump straight from college to building this business. So at CMU, and I would imagine, and I know for a fact this is at many universities, those opportunities exist. They're just a lot less mainstream than the path that the 90 to 95% are following. And so, we had the Center for Entrepreneurship there at Carnegie Mellon that I didn't even know existed really until my sophomore year, but eventually I found it, and I met those people, and I met those professors, right? And so I would say my general advice would be, seek out either the staff or the peers who have those similar drives to you. And I think you'll be surprised that whether it's at school or in a community or anywhere, right, there are these pockets of people who have those similar ambitions and those similar life paths that they're on. And being around them is so much better than constantly having to fight against this. Oh, every one of my friends is talking about that exam and that interview and that internship, right? It's like, no, that has to just be noise, right? I
Right.
have to focus on what I actually care about.
So so you're talking about noise and distractions and staying focused, because a lot of us get caught up in social media, what's going on there, and you talk about how you've had to kind of focus in and hone in on what you really wanted. So how were you able to really keep that noise out? Because not only will social media do it, but like you said, even school would do it, or even your job, your 9 to 5 would do it. Hey, your manager now wants you to work, double and triple shifts, things like that. And also even your closer societal challenges would be your parents, your siblings, things like that. So how were you able to kind of keep that noise out for you to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely not easy. And, I definitely don't want to paint this picture of, oh, yeah, I just shrugged everything off and took one step and forwards at a time. It is, there were definitely moments where, I would lose confidence in myself and I would find myself falling back into, oh man, I'm so far behind on getting this job. And oh man, I need to go work this internship, or maybe I should be applying to be an intern at this lab. So all these things, right? Like I would get pulled around a little bit, but I think what kept bringing me back and focusing me was the realization that, for me at least, and I would hope this is true for most entrepreneurs, the act of building my own thing and sort of controlling my destiny and putting that product out into the world was more fun, was more fulfilling than anything else I had experienced, right? And so, yes, the opinions of the parents and the siblings and the friends and the opportunities and pulls of jobs in school, and like those things are very, very powerful. But for me, I just kept coming back to, I want to be happy and I want to be fulfilled in what I do. And like, I just can't see a path in which those opinions or those opportunities lead me there. And so even if it meant like a lot of people sort of looking at me with a questioning stare saying like, oh, you seem like a smart kid. Really? That's what you're doing? You're making a fitness app thing, right? Like, shouldn't you be building a robot or something? Right. Not listening to those people and just continuing to build what I found most fun ultimately led me to where we are today. Because if you can't find true enjoyment out of this grind that is entrepreneurship, you will inevitably give up and succumb to that noise. And I've seen it happen a lot. If you're just doing it because you want to be rich or you think you should be doing it, the noise will win. If you're doing it because of this much more core realization of I literally couldn't do anything else, then I think you can beat the noise.
So in this state of focus, right? Now we're talking about being an entrepreneur, but how does this parallel as far as your health and things like that? So how do they parallel?
Yeah, I mean, we would joke in the early days that building a fitness company was the worst thing we'd ever done for our health because obviously it introduces a huge amount of stress. It makes we had absolutely like no money to spend on anything, and so we would resort to very unhealthy eating options that were just available and cheap in front of us, right? And so we were definitely not living the ideal of what we would hope that our customers would be living. Looking back at those early days, I'm not sure what more we could have done. I'm sure we could have approached it a bit better, but ultimately we just kind of grew out of that, whereas the business got a little more stable, a little more mature, a little bit of that funding came in, right? We were able to then reinvest into our time, into our mental health, into our physical health. And, I'm happy to say that today, like I feel the healthiest that I've been,
Nice.
right? But in those early pre-seed stages where you're working 100 hours a week and you have no resources to invest in yourself, it's really, really tough. And like sometimes you just have to make that shorter term sacrifice so that you can get, the midterm flexibility to invest in yourself.
So what would you say to someone, because we're talking now, we're going into your actual business, right?
Yep.
So when we talk about health, how important is that to keep that up as you're going and striving for your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, however people may word it. How important is that health and keeping it up to get to that point, or
I
along
mean,
that
yeah.
journey?
Yeah, I mean, incredibly important. And I always like, I think mental health is definitely the most obvious one, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
if your mental isn't, in tip-top shape, like you're not going to be able to lead as well as you want. You're not going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to attract those investors that you want. You're not going to be able to stay motivated to fight that fight the next day, right? And
Right.
so mental health, I'd say, is priority number one. And it's different for everyone, but for me and for a lot of people, using physical health and physical activity
Mm-hmm.
to empower your mental health, I found
Mm-hmm.
extremely valuable during this journey, where even something as simple, obviously, as going on a walk or going on a run
Mm-hmm.
completely changes my mental state into a much better place, right? And so and it's sometimes easy to forget that
Mm-hmm.
months, you've just been rejected for the 80th time from a
Right.
VC, and like it all seems like it's not going to work, and you're super stressed, right? And sometimes just going and hitting the gym or a walk or a run or swim or whatever you do
Mm-hmm.
can completely reset your mind and have you ready to tackle it again the next day. So yeah, it's incredibly important. And I can say for a fact that without physical fitness,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that I would have been able to survive that journey, because it's just so grueling to get through that.
So as we're talking about fitness, what encouraged you to even go that route? To go fitness, because again, if you take a look at Planet Fit, we're just using this as an example. Planet
Yeah.
Fitness, or even My Fitness Pal being the app. You have so many different versions and things that's going on. What would
Yeah.
make you want to even go into that space?
Yeah, great question. And so the two sides of it, one is like the why do I care, and then the other is how did we stand out amongst that huge noisy market that has so many options.
Mm-hmm.
Then the me side of it is I was very inactive and relatively unhealthy growing up, and it
Mm-hmm.
was in my late high school years that I actually met my now co-founder Gabe, and he was an amazing athlete in high school, like the complete
Okay.
polar opposite of me. And he pulled me into the gym, showed me all this stuff, really pushed me. And I was
Nice.
competitive, and we got along really well. And we built this amazing friendship around fitness. And
Okay.
fitness became this huge piece of my life at that moment. And I continued to foster that moving on. So I was just really passionate about fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And, back to the 1 billion people, right? Like my driving initiative has always been impact. And when I
Mm.
think about the kinds of products that impact people, like, yeah, I could build a better dashboard for a bank. Like
Mm-hmm.
that technically is impacting them, right? But if I
Right.
think about that impact versus some of the things we see for Copilot today, where this product saved my life. This gave me the
Mm.
strength to make it through my cancer treatments, right? Like
Hmm.
a bank dashboard would never achieve that level of impact, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of knew that health, fitness, these day-to-day real life things was where I'd be able to scratch that itch of like, I'm making the impact that I want to make. And then in terms of how we stood out in the space,
Mm-hmm.
there's most things in the fitness space are purely software driven or like
Mm-hmm.
content driven, where you just have a huge library of classes or videos or pre-made workouts to choose from. And those can be helpful to get started or just have something to do. But really, what we wanted to do was leverage the amazing force that is a real expert coach. I mean, as a coach, I'm sure you know this,
Mm-hmm.
that everyone ultimately can benefit from a coach, right?
Right.
And we wanted to take that concept of a personal trainer or a fitness coach and make it accessible to everyone. So when you
Mm-hmm.
sign up for Copilot, it's not just an app where you get access to a bunch of workout
Mm-hmm.
videos. You actually meet with a coach face to face. They understand, oh, I have to pick up my kids at 3 and I have this knee thing and I have this shoulder injury I've had since, high school, and all these things in your life, right, that make you human, and they relate to those, and they build you a plan that really fits into your life and meets you where you are. And then they don't just say, all right, good luck, have fun, right? Then they're there with you every single day, adjusting things, encouraging you, being your friend, right? And so that unique approach of it's going to be a human product, not a software product at its core, I think immediately put us in a different category from 99% of the apps out there. And so once people started understanding, oh, this is a real human for a pretty affordable price, about 1/10 the price of what you'd pay to get a trainer at a gym, that combination of human plus affordable is what allowed us to break through that noise and I think start acquiring those early customers.
So here's a question, and we're going back to your roots, right? So were you an integral part of putting the app together? Or did you hire someone else to do it? Did you learn JavaScript and all that type of stuff? So were you the one that put it together? Or because some of our listeners, they're not sure if I should do it myself, should I outsource it, or whatever it might be. So what type of part did you play?
Yeah, I mean, my quick answer is do it yourself. Like with the tools that are out there today, even someone with absolutely no background in building software, whatever you want to build, right? You can probably build it. And there's a bunch of really amazingly generous people in this whole space of startups that will also help you learn those things and build it. For me, I had always been pretty technical. Like I was very started when I was pretty young and I wanted to make my own video game, right? And so I would go and try to learn how to do this and tinker on things. And so I was always pretty technical. I did study engineering at Carnegie Mellon, but I had never, like the engineering degree, on our topic earlier of school kind of being, a little tangential. The engineering degree made me a good engineer on paper, but it didn't teach me anything about how to build an actual product in practice. Like, oh, here's how you build a login page, and here's how you build a database and a server and a website. Like none of that, which surprises a lot of people. But I was a good engineer at the core, but I had no idea how to build anything. And so our first gut feeling was, oh man, we should probably hire someone to come and help us build this app. And looking back on that, I'm like, man, we were so crazy that like we didn't think that we could build the app. But we hired someone. They built a prototype of it, but we kind of looked at that and we realized our company is going to be like this app. Like this is such a core piece of what we're doing. We cannot outsource the product. Right. Like the product is just the ethos of what a business is at the early stage. We cannot afford to just have that be some side project for some contractor. Right. We need to figure out how to build this in-house, either bring someone on to the core team or do it ourselves. And ultimately, we just pushed ourselves and said, all right, I'm going to spend the next 3 weeks watching every free YouTube video about making a mobile app. And I think it was a Stanford class that I basically the free Stanford class that I just went through on YouTube. And I learned how to build an app. And it was a really bad, buggy, glitchy app, but it was an app nonetheless. And it was just enough to get us to that next stage where we could start building on top of that and learning more.
And that's a very interesting space because, again, listen to some of your past, interviews and things like that. I think as what I've been gathering is just having the courage to jump out there, no matter what the situation might be. That's why I asked the question, because sometimes we find these little moments that can stop us from getting to what our objective is. And so I thank you for sharing that because sometimes we don't understand.
Yep. Yeah. And to be clear, like Copilot, or what would become Copilot, was my third idea that I had spent a really substantial amount of time trying to pursue. And so it's definitely not like, oh yeah, you just set out and picked this idea and it all worked out, right? Like I had completely failed, like no customers, no revenue, no funding, nothing, 3 times before I eventually found this combination of things that worked a lot better, right? And so I always wanted to make sure that people understand that it really is just that ability to keep trying, to keep picking yourself up, to just, throw yourself out there and try it, right? I can't even tell you how many people said, oh, you're building a fitness app? There's already a million fitness apps. That will never work, right? And if I had listened to that first person or that 100th person who said that to me, right? Some people still say that to me today,
Right.
which is surprising. But back then, everybody said that. And if I had listened to them, obviously, we'd never be doing what we're doing today.
Matt, I appreciate you coming on today. Where can they find more information and find some of these coaches that will help them, my listeners, the listeners, to get to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, if you check us out at mycopilot.com, we have, I believe it's a 2-week completely free trial where you can call the coach, get your first workouts, do them, and then only if you're happy after that do you pay on a monthly basis moving forward. So would love people to check it out. Send me your feedback. I always love to hear it.
Matt, thank you very much, man, for coming on today. But of course, as you well know, I have to ask you the question. My would you rather question, right?
Do it.
Would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
I would rather choose a fork in the road, I think.
Yeah. Why a fork in the road?
I don't know. I think leaving things up to true chance with the 3 doors is a little against my nature. I think with a fork in the road, me and my co-founder always take a very analytical approach of analyzing A versus B and digging into all the data. And so I think I would like to think at least that I had some sort of influence or some sort of knowledge to choose the right path when the fork appeared. But maybe that's just me tricking myself to be able to live with
it. No, man, that's cool. That's cool, man. I appreciate you coming on today, man.
Appreciate you, man. This was awesome.
Thanks a lot. And continue to listen to That Will Never Work podcast.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?